Hi, I'm Joe, the face behind Pep in Your Step Studio. I've received some queries relating to the parchment craft that is a component in the products that I have available. So I thought I'd film this little tutorial to give you a guide on what's involved in the basic steps in parchment craft, and I hope you enjoy it. This is my workstation. It is a adjustable workboard. The benefit of this is it means I'm not constantly looking straight down on a flat surface, so it just helps my neck. The magnetic board that I use is not essential at all, but the amount of parchment that I do, I just find it easier and helpful. So I felt like I got my value out of it. By all means, you can actually use sticky tape to hold the pieces of parchment to the design. The design I'm using today is a copyright-free design. It is not my design. I do make my own designs, but this is not one of them. But I quite like this little flower and the leaf design there, so I thought we'd do that today. This is a piece of parchment. It's quite translucent, and that is one of the properties of the parchment that we use to our advantage. So I'm just going to put that parchment down. I put it over the design, hold it in place with the magnets, and I'm going to transfer the design to the parchment using a pencil. So because the parchment is so translucent, I can see the design very clearly through it. And I'm just going to use this pencil to trace the design onto the parchment. This mechanical pencil has a white lead in it. It's really actually a pale grey, but it's light enough that it serves the purpose. So I've drawn that simple flower, the stem and the leaves onto my piece of parchment. And you can just see it there when I put it on a black background. This is my embossing mat. It's rubber. It's probably 7mm thick. It's quite squishy. They come in different thicknesses and different densities, but this is a good all-round mat for me. It is certainly my go-to. Put the piece of parchment on there. Today I'm going to do this with the pencil design facing me. I absolutely could do it with the pencil design facing down. It's just a little bit harder to see the design. So there's no reason why today I can't have it with the pencil facing me. If this design had writing on it, such as if it was a birthday card and it said happy birthday, I would want to make sure that that wording was the correct way around when I'd finished my work, because the side that I'm going to be working on today is actually the rear of the design. This will be the front of the design. So I've placed it down, I've got the pencil facing me, and I'm going to commence the embossing. I'll be using, for this stage, a ball. It's an embossing ball. It's nice and smooth. I'm using that size because it suits the size of the petals, but they also come in smaller sizes and larger sizes. But I'll be staying with this one today. It looks different to the others simply because I've placed a grip on it. This is the ball that I use by far the most, so I thought ergonomically I'd just add that grip onto it to help preserve my hands as I get older. And I'm commencing embossing the outside of the petals. And what I'm doing is I want this outer edge of the petal, furthest from the center, to be whiter. And I achieve that by pushing harder onto the parchment. The more the parchment is embossed, the whiter it will go. So if I do this, as I'm bringing it towards me, I'm flicking it and lifting it off the paper. It creates a gradation of that whiteness, which I will use to my advantage. But it has also created a dimension to the parchment paper. I can physically feel that. It's raised up. And it's done it here on the flower as well. That embossing I've put on there, I can physically feel that raised up off the paper as well as it turning white. I've done the petals. I'm not going to emboss the center of the flower. I'm going to use a different technique on that later. But we've still got the stem, so I am going to emboss in the stem. I'm just going to emboss that in solid. And then I've got these two little leaves. They've got little points on the end of them, and that embossing ball will be too large for it. It'll just cause an ill-defined point. So I've moved to the smaller embossing ball. going to give it a nice point and just flick it towards me like I did with the petals. I want these leaves to fade out a bit as they come towards the stem. The reason I want that is it creates dimension to the flower. Not only am I creating dimension with the embossing, how it's pushing out that paper, but if I graduate my embossing so that it's whiter out on these outer edges and then fades off as it comes in, that also will contribute to creating depth and dimension to this design. I'm now going to move to a different embossing tool. So this is a shader tool. It's very smooth and rounded on the edge, and it will work the same as an embossing tool, but I prefer this for doing larger areas. Now this tool, like the others, are available in different sizes, but I'm going to use the smallest one today because I'm doing these little petals. I'm going to place it down on the edge that I've created already. I'm going to push down and then just drag it towards me, flicking it up again, same as I've already done, because I want the outer edge of these petals to be whiter and I want the embossing to fade off. I want that whiteness to fade off as it comes in to the center of the flower. And I'm going to work every petal the same way. I'm doing multiple strokes. So I'm just using moderate tension, moderate pressure as I do this, because I want these strokes to all blend together. I don't want to end up with 2, 3, or even 4 embossed strokes to create these petals. It won't work. If I do 1, 2, 3 hard strokes, I end up with a scalloped edge because it's showing the scallop on the edge of this tool. So I end up with a scalloped edge. I also end up with these harsh lines instead of a nice soft blend. And once you've created harsh lines like that, it is much harder to blend them out. In fact, it may be impossible to blend them out. That may be a texture that I want for the design, but in this case it is not. I want these petals to be sort of nice and soft, just a nice shading to each petal. And the second reason that we do it in multiple layers of embossing instead of just 1 or 2 heavy layers is that the paper needs time to stretch. The parchment paper can begin to buckle and ripple if I emboss it too fast. And once it's buckled and rippled, I can't repair that. I can't fix it. So I do multiple layers of embossing, and if I were doing a bigger area and I wanted it very white, I would in fact walk away between layers. I might just walk away for half an hour, or I might walk away and leave it overnight. It gives the parchment an opportunity to just relax, settle back in on itself a bit more, and then the next time I come back to emboss, it will emboss better for me with less chance of causing the rippling that I've talked about. So I'm happy with those petals, and now we've still got these 2 little leaves here. And again, because they're smaller than the petals, this tool is too big. I can't emboss that little area with that tool. So I'm going to move back to the embossing ball that I originally used on these leaves. Same technique though. I'm just putting the embossing ball down, gently flicking towards myself and lifting the pressure as I bring that embossing ball towards myself. I flip it over because I think, how does that look from the front? It's quite scratchy still. So from the back, it looked pretty good. But when I flip it over, I've got quite a few scratchy lines. The edges at this little point are good. This ball was the right size for that. But as I come down here, it's probably a bit too small. So instead I'll move to my larger embossing ball and just smooth that embossing out a bit more. Because I've done light strokes, I can smooth it out. If I'd done just 3 or 4 heavy strokes, I would struggle to smooth that embossing out and get a nice result. So how does that look now? Still a little bit on this leaf here. It's still a little bit not quite right towards that lower edge of the leaf. It was just going a bit grey. Lovely. All right, I'm happy with that. I've got the petals, the stem, and the 2 leaves, but the centre of the flower needs to still be done. And for that, I'm not going to need the embossing mat. I'm taking that away, and I'm bringing in a piece of cardboard. You can't see the design as well on the cardboard, but I don't need to. I'm still going to work from the back, so I flip it over, and I will use a single needle tool. So this has got a sharp pointed needle in it. There are other needle tools available, and the different designs have different effects. But for the effect of the stippling that I'm going to do today, I'm going to use the single needle tool. Now I know the centre of the flower is right there, so I'm just going to start to gently touch this needle to the parchment in that area. I'm not pushing too hard. If I push too hard, that needle will go straight through the parchment and create a little hole, and that's not what I'm after. I just want lots of little dots, lots of little white dots. All right, how does that look? Let's flip that over and have a look. Quite good. That's quite good. So I've got lots of tiny little white dots in there to create the centre of the flower in a different texture to the petals. So I like that contrast. I absolutely could have embossed the centre of that flower, but I think the contrast of the texture works much better for that flower. So that's the finished design. It's a simple little flower. Certainly the design you work in parchment can be as complicated as you like, but this was a nice little tutorial on some of the beginning steps of doing parchment craft. If you've got any questions, absolutely put them in the comments below and I will answer them. And I look forward to doing more videos in the future, expanding on the techniques and the designs that are available in parchment craft. So thanks for coming in today, and I hope you've enjoyed this.